Wea, te ope nui, te ope rahi kia tū tangatanga te ara ki te hui paia ko te kupu kōrero e whāno mai te kaupapa haumi e hui e tae ki e. This week on The Hui.
A new set of rules for how future laws are made.
I'm extremely excited to introduce the Regulatory Standards Bill to this House.
But not everyone is in support.
The Treaty Principles Bill tried to rewrite the Treaty Principles. This bill is actually trying to replace them, but worse.
We discuss the contentious bill with our expert panel. And it's the race that moved in iwi.
Good night, everybody.
Te Arawa has revived their marae-to-marae relay.
Koera te tehi o ngā kaupapa tino nui, kia whai wāhi mai ai te katoa. Kaua noa ko ngā kai hākina me ngā tāngata kua pakarike.
Ko te atu ngā mate o te pōranga mai ai, o tauhu mate ngā mate o te wā. Hara mai haere. Tātou kei te pito ora, ti hewa mauri ora, hari puanga. And welcome back to The Hui. It's been called the bill that will set new rules for all future legislation. The Regulatory Standards Bill is proposed to enhance legislation based on the principles of, quote, good lawmaking and economic efficiency, end quote. It's another bill that is getting fierce debate across the motu and inside Parliament too.
This bill is a crucial piece of legislation for improving the long-term quality of regulation in our country and ultimately allowing New Zealanders to live longer, happier, healthier and wealthier lives.
So, Mr. Speaker, the Green Party is strongly opposed to this Regulatory Standards Bill because it flies in the face of everything that is good and right on this whenua we call home.
The Treaty Principles Bill tried to rewrite the Treaty Principles. This bill is actually trying to replace them, but worse.
It's a fringe libertarian perspective that gives private ownership, as he well knows, a level of distorted supremacy to trump Māori values, Māori concerns, environmental concerns and community concerns.
We support this bill in the House, and my message to the public is clear. Submit to the Select Committee. I look forward to hearing your submissions. I commend this bill to the House.
Submit to the Select Committee, indeed. So joining us now are our panel of experts. She is a lawyer and also an RSP expert. Joining us is Tania Waikato. Tania, tēnā koe. Nau mai. And also joining us is political commentator Chris Wikaira. Welcome back. Tēnā koe.
Kia ora.
Ia kōranga tira tēnā kōrua. Okay, let's get into the bill. Tania, what are the chief concerns for you?
This bill is the most audacious piece of legislation that I think we have seen in our lifetimes in terms of the constitutional impacts that it will have on Aotearoa, and not just on Māori but on people in general, and the fact that they have not undertaken consultation process on the basis of the constitutional impacts it will have is, as I've said, probably the biggest attempt by a political party to instill their values as the primary mechanism by which all of our laws have to comply that I have ever seen in my 20 years of being a lawyer.
Okay, there's a bit to pick up on there. We will get back to that. Chris Wikaira, what's unusual about this bill? I mean, parties have tried this before. What's unusual about this?
The same party has tried it 3 times before.
Indeed.
This is, you know, third time lucky maybe. It is unusual just for exactly what Tania said, in terms of it being trying to really put a political ideology into all legislation and how all legislation will be framed going forward. That is different.
Okay. Tania, you've been running a lot of hui and posting on social media, helping people with their submissions on the bill. What's the question people are asking most about the bill? What are they asking you?
We get a range of questions about the bill, but one of the primary questions that people ask is, how does this affect me in a very practical, everyday way? And one of the key things about this bill that one of our witnesses in the tribunal, Professor Jonathan Boston, said is that this is the everything bill. because it literally affects every single aspect of life that you can possibly think of. And for all of our people, and I'm not just talking about Māori people, I'm talking about anybody who is a worker and who's not a multi-millionaire, is going to be very heavily affected by this bill. And we won't see the true effects of it until it's in place and until we're sort of 2-3 years down the track, and then we see how all of the existing laws have to be assessed against these Act Party principles and changed to comply with these Act Party principles, and all of the new laws coming in also have to comply with these Act Party principles. There's a really wonderful graphic that my friend Tania prepared for our workshops, which is just a map of New Zealand which has the Act Party logo all over it, and it is the best representation in a nutshell that I have seen for what this will result in.
Yeah. So, Chris Wikaira, the ministry that was set up to deal with these things, specifically look at regulations, have given advice to the minister and have said that he's looking at regulations in a different way, or indeed in a way that is not in line with the way in which statutes and legislation is made in Aotearoa.
That's fascinating, because there was the expectation in Wellington that that new ministry, David Seymour's ministry, would just be at heel and would fall straight into line and would support everything he's doing. The fact that it hasn't quite done that must be perplexing to the party, and where that ends up is... Well, we see ministers, to be fair, we see ministers ignoring officials and departmental advice all the time from governments mai anō. But yeah, everyone expected that ministry to be absolutely right at his heel, doing exactly his bidding as he wanted it.
Well, one of the key things about that, which came out in our tribunal hearing, was not only that did his own ministry not support this bill and point out all of the other ways that this policy problem could be dealt with, and there's question marks as to whether it is even a policy problem that we have. But his own ministry went as far as providing advice to him to say, okay, well, you should go and consult with te iwi Māori. Here are the people you should go and consult with, because this is going to have very serious impacts on te iwi Māori. And the minister's response to that was cross out those organisations that his own officials were telling him to go and consult with.
Which is what was considered substantively by the tribunal, therefore making the recommendation it did to halt it immediately before it even got to stage 2, right? And reading in stage 1.
Absolutely, and the tribunal agreed with our submission that the consultation process was fundamentally flawed because of the way that the minister approached it, ignoring his own officials' advice, ignoring all of the advice that came back from the departmental reports on this bill. All of the departments, they're going to be required to review their legislation against these principles. All of them expressed very serious concerns about this bill.
And it's completely consistent with ACT's policy, and it goes to the comment that the leader made just this week. There is no Māori funding, and because he just doesn't believe it.
Well, he said it was racist.
Yeah.
He said it was racist.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's by need. Everything's by need. Well, for health, it's one and the same. They're the same thing, really, when you look at it in reality. So that consult with iwi, he would just go, why? Computer says no, just does not compute with him.
It's not just a bill that's unusual, it's the circumstances that we now find ourselves in, right? So we had a treaty principles bill. That got the response, a massive and huge response.
Unprecedented response. Particularly from Māori, and the engagement of rangatahi Māori in the political process I've not seen anything like it in my 30 years in dealing with politics and journalism.
I thought it was longer than 30 years, which is quite Chris, but anyway, you've been there a long time. But I'll take the point you're saying, because now we have this one. Has the Minister, and now the Deputy Prime Minister, has he completely underestimated the response that he would receive? Because we've already heard about the massive amounts of negative responses in submissions already made, Tania.
Oh, he underestimated it. He absolutely underestimated it, and that's why he's come out
underestimated
with these comments saying that it was bots that made those 20,000 submissions.
You don't really look like a bot.
January. I know I can be as efficient as a robot sometimes, but Tina and I trained over 400 people to go out and give submissions workshops on this bill. And back in January, when I first found out about this bill, which is not long after the Treaty Principles bill debacle, when we were all running around getting people to make submissions, we had a 5-day window to encourage people to make submissions on this. And I and a lot of my content creator friends, we went as hard as we possibly could to get people to make those submissions. So I know they were real people. And when he made those comments last week, so many people contacted me because they were livid about the comments he made about their submissions.
Why did he make that comment then, to both of you? Why make a comment like that?
He just doesn't want to believe that many people were that anti his bill. And look, I'm still surprised at how many, particularly our young ones, got involved in that process. And it was the movement that the likes of our friend here started. My cousin Maya Wikaira, I know she did a whole heap as well. It was just a roll-on that no one expected that it would be so large. So therefore, it just, again, I said a moment ago, does not compute. It does not compute with him.
But fundamentally, calculated political play to accuse these submissions of just being generated by bots, right, Tania?
Absolutely.
Not lazy throwaway line.
The timing of it, I think it was calculated, and I think it was very deliberate that he did it right now. We crashed that submissions portal on the first day when these submissions opened this round because we were prepared. We were waiting, literally waiting for that portal to open. And we had already mobilised our people, we'd already trained our trainers, we'd already had thousands of people ready to go. I posted the night before because we were waiting. And I said, and I tagged him in it, and I said, we're waiting, when are you going to open the submissions? And I'm not surprised it crashed on the first day because we had so many people ready to make them. It crashed again the other week. It will crash again on the last day because he doesn't understand that we don't need bots to get thousands of submissions because we have whanaungatanga, and every time we activate our people, they hear us.
We are our own bots.
I want to talk more about the submissions process after this. We'll hear more from our expert panel, Tania, Waikato, and of course Chris Wikaira. Stay with us. We'll have more after this. Kia ora mai anō, he huinga ture, he huinga toranga pūtea ni te haere ake nei on our panel on the Regulatory Standards Bill, our experts, Tania Waikato and Chris Wikaira. Let's get back into it. The submissions process, you spoke about this before the break, Tania. There is a truncated time frame in terms of the submission process for this bill. Why is that the case?
Well, I would love to ask the Minister, David Seymour, why that is the case, because normally a bill would have a 6-week submissions period. This one only has 28 days. And the Select Committee, we sent a letter to them the other week asking, why has this got a shortened submission process? And our Te Pāti Māori MP asked for an 8-week process, which was voted down by the committee. One of our Green MPs asked for a 6-week process, which is the normal period of time, also was voted down. So in terms of the impact that this bill is going to have from a constitutional perspective and how important it is, to have a shortened submission process in that context, in my opinion, is just reflective of how the Minister is adopting a shove it through as quickly as it possibly can and at any cost. The other issue that came out of that Select Committee decision-making processes. Initially, when they published this on the parliamentary website, there was a date of 22 November for the Select Committee to report back to the House on this. The Minister has now requested for that to be truncated and brought forward to the 23rd of September, which is the minimum period of time of 4 months and 1 day for the processing of that. So again, the Minister is trying to shorten and truncate that process so that it can't follow a full democratic process.
See, Chris, this is why I say it's not just the bill that's unusual, it's the whole process that is unusual.
Well, if we go back to the Treaty Principles Bill process, they did that. They had a truncated process as well, and that was agreed by National and New Zealand First as well, because they were never going to support it through to finality into legislation, so therefore they just wanted to allow David Seymour a little bit of time to have his grandstand and his platform and then get it over and done with as quickly as possible. That's why they truncated the process there. And with this one, they won't want the hullabaloo either. So that's why they will be agreeing to a shortened process. But
Yep.
You know, e tū wini tana pūkana.
Well, before we get to Winston, the part I don't understand about that, if that's the case, about letting David Seymour have his platform, National supporting this is a part of the coalition agreement.
Yes.
They are going to support this all the way through, right? So what does National do now? If there is such a big hullabaloo, if what happens with the Treaty Principles Bill, get another hikoi, or whatever it might be, what does National do?
They can do what Winston Peters has said New Zealand First will do, and that they are not happy with the bill in its current form, and that it needs change, and that they will be making change. So this is where the rubber really hits the road, and we get to the crux of the whole matter, because it could all proceed and get to legislation, or fall over on that point there.
Okay.
On what Winston does.
That requires something in the bill that appeals to people through submissions that they will talk about in these submissions. Tania Waikato, is there anything in this bill that you like?
No. This bill in its entirety is an affront not just to our democracy, to Te Tiriti o Waitangi, to the partnership that was agreed on in Te Tiriti, and the fact that they've already been told by the Waitangi Tribunal that this is a breach of the principle of partnership. This is a breach of the principle of active protection, and you must stop immediately. If you carry on and introduce it, you're going to breach Te Tiriti. If you pass it, you will breach Te Tiriti. So they have been warned. And like they have been doing essentially for the entire period that this coalition has been in government, they are ignoring their own tribunal about what their obligations under Te Tiriti are.
See, the irony of this is that someone who isn't necessarily a fan of the Waitangi Tribunal could end up being the one that actually stops this bill. Of course, I'm talking about the indefatigable and omnipotent Right Honourable Winston Peters. Is that really going to happen, though, Chris? Talk to me. What is New Zealand First going to do?
New Zealand First has confirmed again that they need to make changes to the bill to accept it. So then it comes down to the steering contest between David Seymour and Winston Peters. Are Winston's changes going to be acceptable to David Seymour? We don't know yet, because we don't know what they are and when they're going to be introduced. You know, changes to legislation or a bill can happen right up into the third reading with the introduction of a supplementary order paper. So it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. You know, legislation's been changed on the last day that it's been debated in the House. So there's some more theatre to come.
Well, and see, this is the interesting thing about the timing of all of this. If the timing that they've already indicated proceeds, we'll have a committee report back around September, late September, which will then lead into the second reading, probably early October. Then we'll have a debate. Then third reading's probably going to be sometime around the end of the year. And if I was Winston, I would definitely be sitting there thinking to myself, okay, if this all blows up the way it looks like it's going to blow up, if we get hundreds of thousands of submissions on this and a massive backlash on this bill, that is just going to increase the political likelihood of them saying, maybe we will walk away, maybe we will not support this bill. But I would, if I was him, I would let that play out as long as possible and let that opposition grow. Because if he does that, he'll be placing himself into a position, if they do walk away from it and it does result in a snap election, then they'll be in the best position possible.
You're saying this bill could be the one that breaks the coalition government up?
This is the only bill out of all of the legislative program that has been agreed between the three coalition partners that has the potential to cause a snap election. It is the most maligned piece of legislation for 20 years, and in particular for New Zealand First and for Winston, it goes against the bones of that party. We were talking about it before.
Right.
Winston was kicked out of the National Party for objecting to exactly the type of ideology that is in this bill, and his voter base, they do not like this. They will be demanding to know, why are you all of a sudden supporting a bill that will enable foreign corporate control of Aotearoa?
We are talking about some serious political movements going on here.
And the playing field for Winston Peters has just changed. He's no longer
Deputy Prime Minister.
And he takes the role of office and those positions very, very seriously. Now, not so much. He doesn't have to. He can go, you watch he and Shane start their hikoi o te motu very, very soon. That's what New Zealand First does very, very well. They'll be out there rallying the people that support New Zealand First and saying exactly what Tania said about here. There are things in this bill which are anathema to, that's the sort of word that Winston would use, to New Zealand First.
Yeah. Thank you both for your expertise. Really appreciate your time. Tēnā kōrua. Tania Waikato and Chris Wikaira, our expert panel there. Kia ita tunu mai e hoa mā. Kua ara ke anō te kaupapa whakaora tangata whakaora marae anō hoki o Te Arawa. The Te Arawa Marae Relay is up next. He hui whakapiki ora whakapiki marae tēnei, te haere ake nei. Te Arawa has revived its marae-to-marae relay with nearly 1,000 runners and walkers of all ages taking part. It started out as a fun run, but tribal pride quickly turned it into a race for a place. Mea nei te purongo, awena harawira.
I te tākiritanga o te ata, ko ho moata mai nā nākau whiwhita o te Arawa waka.
Morena. Morena. Morena, everybody.
E huataki ana nā kuia me nā kraua i te tau o mataanga a marae. Whātekau mārua kilomita te tawhiti. Te kaumātahi nā tūāoma ki tēnā marae, e āwhio ana i te rotorua nui a kahumata momoe.
I'll be lucky if I make it to the highway.
Now, have you two been training as husband and wife?
No. To the letterbox. To the letterbox. We're the nannies. Our secret weapons are in the middle, all our kids.
It's really important that you don't lose these batons, otherwise you're going...
Ko tīpene te moni te kai hautu o te papatākaro o te Arawa, me te kai whakahaere o te tau o mataanga.
Toru te kaumārua katoa ngā tīmano ia marae. Ka amutu ko tōna toru te kau ngā tāngata kai ia tīma. Nā reira, ko tata ki te kotahi mano ngā tāngata, ngā kaioma, ngā kaihikoi rānei, ko whai wāhi mai ki tēnei o ngā kaupapa.
Kua rite te aroa kapa, me o rātau hangahi koe, kai āwhina hoki. Kāre e wawe atu te kō kirikiri, engari e hia moana rātau.
You can slow down there.
Koera te tehi o ngā kaupapa tino nui, kia whai wāhi mai ai te katoa. Kaua noa ko ngā kai hākina me ngā tāngata kua pakarike.
E umere ana hoki, o te hunga pōturi.
Koera te tehi mea ka hua mai i te aroha nui o te tangata ki tōnā ki anō iwi. Koera ki te rautaki pai. Hei whakakorikori i te iwi.
These Bible catch you gonna win.
Ko tahi haora whai muri i te tīmatanga o te kaupapa Māori, kua puta mai nā waiwai kakama o te oma haurua o Rotorua. Whitu mano tāngata te maha. He tere anō hoki te haere a te hungahi koe. E whaiwhai ana nā kai o matanga, kai o mahaurua hoki i te huarahi matua e karapoti ana i te roto. E whakahaere nā tahi ai nā tākunetana, ai tuari i nā utu, tōna whitu te kau mano tāra te nui, o nā mahi ahuna waka, te aki tāngata hoki. He utu anō hoki mo te hangarau. He pairongo kei runga i nā haki me nā pau, ai hopu i te wā e whakawhiti ai te kaioma.
Let's go all the way, all the way. Go ladies.
He 4 kiromita ko takahi atu ki wai te tī, te tuawha o nā marae i te ara oma. Kua puta mai te toki o Tarimano, ki te mātai, i te hunga tau whainga.
Katoa, o ngā kai ia kai oma, kai arata etahi. Mea hona, mea kāre te tino whāki atu ki etahi atu. Kai kapohia mai ai e tētahi. Wau pēr tētahi, te rauna whakamutunga, i te wāhanga whakamutunga. Engari, me waiho ki reira, kai pote e nei kōrero ki wāhi ki atu.
He momo tonu. He He hiwi kai tēnei wahanga o te ara o Maoma. Tērā te ki te ai, te pā mai o te he manawa, me te manawa nui. Heoi, he tau o matāanga pea te ara whāinga mo te iwi o te Arawa.
Mā te takahi mararo e kite ai te tangata i te tehi āhuatanga kareno i ake kite i te mea kai te hautū waka ke tātou, kia whakawhiti atu ki tēnā marae, kia huri noa tātou i te roto o te rotorua nui, akahumata momoe.
Neke atu i te whāhaora, ka whakawhiti atu te tira tuatahi i te pai whakamutuna. Ko te tira o Ngāti Whakau e te toa. Engari, he poto te hari.
I hate to burst Ngāti Whakau's bubble, however they didn't abide by the rules.
I raro i ngā ture, me whakawhiti ā-rōpu nā kai o makatoa o te tira i te pai whakamutuna.
And here's one of our teams in the marae-to-marae relay. Let's cheer them along to the finish.
Engari kua hinga ngā tira o tapu Waikura, me Roro-o-te-rangi, kaore hoki I mau ki ngā ture.
Team Tarimanu in the marae-to-marae relay.
Ka rei tāreka a ti Tarimanu, aha koa ngā hiahia o te toki o Tarimanu.
Ia ha te prene.
Kare etahi whai atu te prene. Kone te mate, iau, e whakakohata hea ki te upako, ngari, ko te tihari etahi, hoi anu. Ko te mea nui, ko tai mai tō mātou tira, ko hari ko te iwi, ko eke te iwi, ki te taumati wawata tia mai ai, ngore kāri ko atu, kāri ko mai.
I te mutuna iho, ka puta te ihu o te tira o Waiteti I te tau o Matanga. Ko wali haumaha te kaiko mihana prihimana tuarua o mua, tō rātou kai ārahi.
I said Ngāti Ngāraranui was going to win, and these fellas said we're winning because we're all law-abiding citizens.
O wai te marae kai runa.
Hara mai te Arawa. Hei te wiki e tū mai nei e hoa mā, coming up next week on The Hui.
A feast based on memories.
It's all go in the kitchen. Everyone's very excited. It's buzzing.
With MasterChef winners Karena and Casey Bird.
Iau e whakaro ana ki te kupu maumahara, I whakaro ki tuku tamarikitanga, I whakaro ki oku tipuna.
Remembering past challenges and celebrating the good times.
When we design dining experiences, we want them to be immersive. We want people to come in and we're able to transport people into different worlds for each of those plates.
Gee, that looks mean, hey? That is us for this week. We have our Puanga special, including that story, on The Hui next week. He huinga reo, he huinga tangata, he huinga puanga. Until then, e ngai wiki a mau, ki te tūranga. O tapu te poate, haumi e, hui e, taiki e.
Nā te puna whakatongarewa, te hui I tautoko.